All right. Well, welcome again. Thank you for joining me this morning or afternoon, depending on your time zone. My name is Jaime Rosales. I'm a senior developer advocate for the Forge platform. You can tweet me, follow me along, or ask me any questions in Twitter. So my handle is AlfroJME, hence the hair, I guess. And today we'll be spending some time in helping you out with the necessary steps that you need to take in order to set up BIM360 integration. And at the same time also, I will walk you through a tutorial that we have available in our Learn Forge material that it's called View Hubs, in order to get access to the data that you have hosted in BIM360 docs, and from there also have different interactions with those models that you have stored in there. So just a little bit more about the hackathon. So this upcoming July 10th, the AEC hackathon comes back. It's going to be virtual, as based on the circumstances that all of us are going around right now in the world. So I will invite you to register to the AEC hackathon. It has a small fee for it in order to participate. In case you want to play around with the challenges that we have, like the best BIM360 project and also the best design automation project from the Autodesk side, you can participate on those challenges and win prizes for that. So if you register for it, then you will need to attend the official start of the hackathon, which will happen July 10th at 2 o'clock Eastern time, for a set of lightning rounds and also team building. Like I said, remember, not only Autodesk will be giving prizes, also we will have some of the other companies sponsoring the event, having different challenges for you to solve day-to-day problems within the AEC industry. Okay, so now, how to ask questions. So today with me, I have Adam Nagy in the call. He's one of my colleagues and teammates from quite a couple of years already. Actually, Adam just turned 15 years in Autodesk, so he kind of knows his way around some of the technologies. So I will say, raise a hand or Q&A. For now, I will ask you to handle most of the stuff on a Q&A, and that way Adam can go through the queue and then just answer step by step your questions. Later on, when I'm done with the webinar, we will open up the mic depending on how much time do we have left, in case you guys might want to ask something about what just got presented. All right. So Forge itself, it's Autodesk platform for the cloud, allows you to interact with different web service APIs. And because of this platform, now we have the capability of integrating with BIM360. And here you can see some of those examples about the integrations from different companies that are currently already working with the platform itself. There is categories for, let's say, mixed reality, like Insight VR. We have IoT, like Triax. Construction management, like smart video. Then we have some stuff for cost management, like CMIC, and so many other ones. So these are companies that today have integrated with the platform and also with BIM360 in order to allow their customers or their internal users in the company to be able to access that data and then just expand more of it. So why would you like to create a BIM360 integrations? So maybe you have BIM360 docs, and let's say there are certain functionalities that are not part of the product itself, and you want to interact with that data that you have hosted in there in order to create something like, let's say, dashboard functionality, or maybe you want to track some IoT data or some issue customized way to do your building operations or something like that. So this is something that you can integrate together using the platform of Forge and the BIM360 product. So as in yesterday, I'm not a lot about PowerPoints. I prefer to kind of like show you some of the demos that we have available in regards to integrations. So I'm going to move along and start from there. So let me end this, stop the sharing. And where are you guys? Share screen. Okay. So I believe you can see my browser, correct, Adam?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So now just a bit more about the event itself. So you can find more information about the AEC Hackathon online at the hackaec.com site. There is explanations about what the event is, if it's your first time actually participating, the link to register, some videos in order for you to find out more about how this community and also how this event actually goes along. It's quite fun. I've been actually joining these events for the past like 5 years, something like that. And there is different dates for it. Like I mentioned, if you're planning to register, which I encourage you to do it, you will have to be part of the hackathon kickoff and lighting round on July 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And through the week, we will have also Forge dedicated resources for you to get help in case you decide to use one of our services to participate in the event. Okay, so let's move along. So first, we want to start with what will be one of the use case scenarios that I was talking about when you want to probably extend the functionality of BIM360. One of the ones that we tend to use quite often is the visualization of reports from BIM360 side of it. So let's say if we prompt the sign-in, this uses a three-layer authentication web service from the Forge platform in order to give me access to what my user, Jaime Rosales, in this case, has access in the BIM360 product side. So if we start expanding some of these hubs, which are the Autodesk hub for my case, but I also have access to other ones. And at the same time, also, we can see that we have access to something like A360 or like BIM360 Team, which are like a little bit older, but more about like Fusion teams as well. So let's say we want to access to the Jaime Docs Test project on the Autodesk hub. From here, the root file of the project files. Then we come down to Jaime folder, and then we go back to an Urban House Revit file, and we have a version 1 of this file. So to explain a little bit more what I just did, if we go back to, let's see, docs. If I go back to the BIM360 side of the product, we see that we have the Autodesk Hub, the Jaime Docs Test project, and we have many other projects in here, right? So we have a couple ones. So I'm using the Jaime Docs Test project. And then we come down to project files, and then we look for, my camera is on the way, we look for Jaime folder. We get to see the different versions that actually were available in the sample that I'm just showing you. So from here, I can click on it and then just, ooh, this is fun. Let me try it again. There we go. That was a glitch. So now from here, we're able to visualize the model that I just loaded, and then at the same time also gives us all the different access to the 3D views that this project actually contains. But not only the 3D views, but also the 2D views. But if you're a BIM360 Docs user, you already know this. But now, let's say I want to load one of those models directly from my integration that I put together. So now again, we load the same kind of model again. But at the same time also, now we see something new. And it's that we have a way to interact with different filters for creating dashboard functionality. So let's say we want to focus into the category of this model. So it will highlight everything that it's pertaining to a specific filter for the category of the families. Let's say we want to see all the curtain panels, all the docks, the dock fittings, for example. Let's see what else is fun. Let's see, some columns, some floors. So now you see that I expanded the use of my BIM360 data directly on an integration that I worked on in order to create the dashboard functionality version of it. And we can use different graphs. For this, we're using charts.js, which is one of the tutorials that also we have available in the material that I will be showing you soon. But now, at the same time, also, you saw that in BIM360 docs, if I wanted to see something like a 2D model, I had to actually change and load this 2D model. Let's say I want to expand that functionality and then just get some sort of nested viewer. So I have now an open like pop-up docking panel, which is a nested viewer that I can start like interacting directly from my same scene, okay? That's one of them. Then the other one will be the document browser, where we have access to all the documents that are pertaining to this project. At the same time, also, we can visualize the different thumbnails for both the 3D and 2D views, okay? Where we can, at the same time, load it from here. And now another fun one that actually, this one is part of the viewer, it's this one here, which is called visual clusters. So this is kind of like a control explode mode. So if you've seen Forge Viewer before, this is what I talk about when I said exploding. This is basically breaking the model apart. So now we have the cluster one. And if you see, we have a filter here on the categories in order to get an idea and a sense of what can be categorized when we hit this cluster functionality. So now we go ahead and hit it. And now we see that many of the different parts of self, they have been categorized depending on the kind of family they are. And we can focus now on one specific one. So let's say you are a provider of doors, you don't need to investigate the entire model anymore. You can use some sort of extension like this one in order to start reading more about the different properties of those selected doors that are categorized already in some sort of a group view for you, okay? So now this functionality, it's not, I cannot use this in BIM360. That's the reason at some point, if I want to do customization of the viewer or the application in general, a BIM360 integration actually makes sense for you. All right, so let's get back this thing together. It's just pretty cool. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but it's kind of eye-catching. All right, so now moving along to one of the other samples. So we have also an export to Excel. So let's say we want to log in again into our same project. We're gonna come back to Autodesk, Jaime Docs Test, project files, and then we can do, let me just go back to Jaime folder, Urban House, select this. Now we'll start selecting and then loading that same model again. But now we have one little extra button here on our toolbar that will allow us to actually create some sort of new extraction of this data. So if we do that, we start grabbing all the functionality and also all the metadata that comes in from the Revit model, and we export everything into an Excel file. So now if we open this Excel file, now we can see that we have all the metadata information in an Excel spreadsheet categorized in different sheets depending on the type of family that we'll be using. So you can already start seeing that maybe your models hosted in BIM360 will have a lot of functionality and data that you will be able to do more with it. But the BIM360 doc side of it itself does not let you modify any kind of functionality that you want to do custom made for your application. So again, a BIM360 integration itself, in this case, it kind of makes sense to do. So let me get back here. So now, some things that we need to keep in mind is that whenever we are setting up, this is not kind of like an out-of-the-box situation. if you see here, I have something that it says we need to do a certain configuration in order for our data to become available from the BIM360 integration. So we provide what it is, the Forge client ID, and also an app name. And this is something that you can copy to it. And then in your BIM360 account administration, you will need to include that client ID in your settings. This is now called custom integrations. And when you do that, you will include the Forge client ID, give it the app a name, and then add a description and save it. What this will do is it will allow now your user to have access to the data that is part of your account in this kind of integration. And the same thing will have to be done for any kind of integration that you will do. So let's say then you will create an application which will become part of the App Store of BIM360. So I can actually show you this pretty quickly. Account admin. And then we have the App Store, where you can create this integration and make it available for your customers to simply just install it into their BIM360 administration side of it. And all this connection will happen once it's set up in the App Store. But for testing purposes, developing and all that stuff, you can simply start with the settings part of adding the custom integrations in here. So you see I have quite a couple ones, and we will get back to this one because we will need it for our workshop part. So there are some resources that I will be sharing with you after the end of this presentation that allow you to do, what about if you want to use BIM360 Docs as an account for development? So if you're an ADM member, you have an access to this. If you're a paid account owner, also you have an access to this. If neither of those, I will recommend joining ADM as a standard professional and request a free BIM360 Docs account for development purposes. Okay. At the same time, also, we have some specifications about, let's say you are in the European region. So you can also get a BIM360 Docs development account for the European region server. So in that case, it will be like a BIM360 Docs for the EMEA region in order to handle all your projects, and that is like GDPR compliance as well. So now, when we go to here, so activating the API access to Docs, it's what I was just explaining. You will have to log into the account administration, and then from there, go to settings, include the custom integrations, and then add that custom integration, select the access of the APIs that you want your application to be able to interact with. And then from there, set up everything as, let's say, a developer, or you can invite a developer as well, in case you're the customer, not the one creating the application. Add the information about the Forge client ID, that it's registered for that. And then once that application is set up, it will get, congratulations, your app is now active. And now you can go back to the integration and start accessing your own BIM360 data from this application. In case you don't have that custom integration tab today, and you have BIM360 Docs access, where you're an account admin and so on, you can simply request it to BIM360 apps activation at autodesk.com. It is a manual process, but it takes around 24 hours in order to get approved for it. So this is something that we will have to do, okay? At the same time also, we have, with my team, developed quite a lot of different samples in order for you to obtain the code of those applications, like the one that I just previously showed you, like the BIM360 reports, also the BIM360 Excel export. We have transfer storage as well. So this one, let me open quickly to show you the diagram. So this one basically handles different transfer of storage using different AWS services like API Gateway and Lambda in order to do a transfer from BIM360 Docs to, let's say, Box, Ignite, Google Drive, OneDrive, or Dropbox, for example. So it's a bidirectional movement of storage files from one location to the other. the same time, also, we can interact with what it is the BIM360 issues. So BIM360 issues itself, you can interact with a viewer extension in order to create a new issue and then visualize also the pre-existing ones that you have from your BIM360 docs location. So this allows you to also add more functionality that it's already native to the BIM360 docs side of it, but maybe you want to customize it completely on your own application itself. All right. So let me move along. Also, we have BIM360 model coordination as one of those services available. And here is a sample that using Power BI, you can compose different kind of reports based on the model set of the merging of two models or three models, and then just see and detect the clashes that are happening in that model set itself. If you are a long-time BIM360 user, this model coordination is the new version of what it was BIM360 Glue. Well, it still is, I guess. So there is ways now that, again, creating this kind of BIM360 integration itself, you can get this to get you the different visualization for that report composing using kind of like a famous application like Power BI for the report functionality. Okay, instead of the graphs that I showed you previously. Okay, so let me get back to my application, my PowerPoint presentation, sorry, 1 second. So we're gonna share the screen. Okay, so now I give you a quick couple of demos and some pointers into it. And now we're gonna get started with what we're gonna do today. So we have a little bit over an hour. Let's see how we do on time with this. But basically what we will be creating is a simple application that will allow you to create one of those folder tree structures together with the three-layered authentication to access your account, and then from there be able to visualize your data. Once you visualize your data, folders, projects, files, and versions, we will be able to load this into the viewer in order to start interacting with. And then I will point you out to some other resources that we have to do an extension on this kind of project for you to have as, let's say, call it homework or something like that. So some of the requirements, if you're new to this, you will need a Forge account. So you will need to head over to forge.autodesk.com in order to create your account. Once you create your account, you will need to create a Forge application, enable the account to start the free trial. So nothing will get charged to you or anything like that. You will just get a set of different cloud I forgot the name of this. It mixes up with my Spanish and English. Cloud credits, I guess, in order to interact with the services itself. And then I'm going to be focusing today using Node.js and also Visual Studio Code as my IDE for this. If you don't have any BIM360 account for that, you can interact with the A360 one. Some of you probably have done this in the past. So if you get to run the project itself, it will start showing you those icons, which are not the B ones for BIM360 docs, but the ones for A360. And then also for the account administration authorization app, there's a couple of tutorials in this location. And I will be sharing these notes later on in a bulk email with all the resources as well. So this custom integration part of it is the one that I explained. So if you have access to an account administration BIM360 app, you can check if you have custom integrations enabled. If you don't have custom integrations enabled, it's something that you will have to take care of it after the webinar in order to just get back to this recording and be able to work it out. Okay. So now we will get started. But before that, I want to just do a quick check on the chat and the Q&A. All right, so we see.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about these two because they seem to be related to the hackathon itself.
Let me
Your
see, the
colleague.
recording will be available. I will tweet the link. Oh yeah, that's you, thanks. Very good, the end of could, in the end could send the presentation. Yes, Chamba, I can actually send it. Like I said, since you register, so you have this link and you're in the Zoom webinar, that means that I have your email and I will send a bulk email with all the resources and also the link for the recording from yesterday in order for you guys to have this material. So don't worry about that. Now, Q&A, will attending the hackathon benefit me as an architect who does not have much programming background? Yeah. So this is the cool thing about this hackathon itself. Like the AAC hackathon welcomes all kind of professionals in the industry, and architect, basically the AAC, A being for architecture, it's more than welcome to it. You could come in into the event based with your knowledge, and also maybe you will have some sort of like day-to-day problems that you kind of want to solve, and you can pair up with different people that have the skill set in order to put together a solution. So let's say you join the hackathon, um, and then from there you can start pairing up with maybe one or two developers, later on someone like a BIM manager or something like that, and then you guys can think of on some sort of idea in order to solve a problem. Okay, does the hackathon benefit only programmers or developers? Or can civil engineer get into facility management also benefit from this? I could find clear description of prerequisites. So the same thing that I just mentioned. Basically, yeah, all kinds of expertise in the AAC industry are welcome to join. Like I said, you can pair up with people that have the programming skills. When I participated in the past, I was one of the developers in one of the teams, and then I had people with architectural background, civil engineering background, VDCs, and so on. So yeah, more than welcome to join. And if you didn't find a lot of description on that, I will look into the website. If not, I will definitely tell the organizers that we need to put up some wording in order to make it more clear for next time. And then you're welcome. Is it possible to create a Forge app even if no previous programming experience? Um, yes. So the tutorial that I'm gonna be given right now, it's in some way kind of like a set of steps that not a lot of coding is needed for doing like structural coding in order to put up together the application from zero to be running on a hosted environment. I will need more than an hour. So for this kind of workshop, that's the reason you will see me doing a lot of walking through on steps that we have where we just give you the code already and then you're just structurizing the application itself. Okay. All right. So let me move along and then we can get started. Let's see if I can finish on time. Okay. So to get started, we're gonna head over to learnforge.autodesk.io. So let me stop my sharing and get back to. Okay, so we're gonna go to learnforge.autodesk.io. Okay, so now from here, like I said, it talks a little bit about what Forge is in order to help you learn the basics about authentication, data management, file translation, and so on. Gives you a simple summarize of what are the capabilities of the platform, like visualizing 3D models in your browser, centralize and manage data, convert your design files to different formats in order to get access to their data and geometry itself. But before we start coding, we need to do a couple of steps. So basically, like I said, we will need to go and create your Forge account. So you can head over to the Forge developer account, sign up or sign in if you have already an Autodesk ID. Once you do that, you will need to go into the My Subscriptions in order to start the free trial. The reason why it's because if you don't start your free trial, you're not going to have access to all the different services that we offer with the platform. Once you do that, you're gonna go ahead and create an application. We give you a callback URL for the use of this tutorial. At this time, we will need the callback URL. So make sure that you copy this value, right? And we do the callback URL in the creation of our app, okay? And then once that app is created, you will get back a set of client ID and a client secret, and also the callback URL, in order for you to get the right permissions to interact with that, okay? So now let me move along. And then for the tools itself, since I said I'm going to be using Node.js, so you will need to install Node.js if you don't have it. Okay, you will get the recommended for most users. I will stay away from this one. This one has latest features and stuff like that. So if you're not experienced with Node.js, you might have some problems. And then also we will use Visual Studio Code for the IDE. I'm quite a fan now of Visual Studio Code in order to develop my project. So it's actually pretty good to run and debug, let's say, server-side part of it. It has built-in Git and also a terminal that allows you to do different kind of interactions, like you will see in just a second. And then we will head over to the tutorial that it's called View BIM360 and Fusion Models. So again, this is giving you a preview of how the application will look at the end. So where you get access to your data that is hosted on BIM360 Docs or Fusion Team. And then from here, select the different versions to get a visualization in the viewer. Okay. So now we will get started with this. And then we will get started by creating a server. So since I said we're going to be using Node.js, we're going to select Node.js. And creating a new project with Node.js in Visual Studio Code, we need to go to Menu, File, and then select Open a folder if you already have one. It says let's use for example. You can call it that. I did a tutorial yesterday, which I call it for example. So mine today is going to be called BIM360 integration. Actually, the folder name doesn't matter too much, but it's just good to kind of like keep some structure for it. And then in Visual Studio Code, we will also view the integrated terminal. From the integrated terminal, we will initialize our Node.js sample with npm init command. And then something to keep in mind is that when we get prompt about what's going to be our entry point file, instead of the default, which is index.js, we will use start.js. Once that is done, it will create a package JSON file. And then we will need to start installing our packages from npm, so Node, in order to interact with the different functions that we will be creating later. In this case, we will be using Express, Multer, Cookie Session, and Forge APIs. As a result, we will get a file, a package JSON that will look like this, where we will have included the different dependencies from it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that part. So I'm going to open my Visual Studio Code. And Adam, can you see my Visual Studio Code?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right, so now from here, I'm right now in my BIM360 integration folder that I just created. So we can do npm. Oh, and something that you can do in order to check if you have Node in your machine already installed, it's type in the terminal Node version. And if this gives you back a result, then that means you have Node installed. Same thing for npm. You can do npm version, and it gives you back the version of npm that you have installed. So now we can get started with npm init. Now you're going to start seeing that it's going to start walking you through a couple of things about the different setup that we need to compose the package JSON. So package name, in your case, will be, for example, I'm going to leave it as BIM360 integration for now. The version 1.0.0, keep going to description. This is workshop AC BIM integrations. And then the entry point, like we said, the default is index.js, but we are going to be using start.js. Test command, we're going to leave it empty for now. Git repo, we don't have a Git repo yet. Keywords, Forge, author, Jaime Rosales. License, ISC, or we can do MIT. So now it gives us a preview of how the package JSON is going to look. Everything seems okay. Yes, enter. And now if you see, we have a new package JSON that got just added into our folder. All right. So now we're going to get started by installing the different node modules. So we're going to do npm install APIs -- save in order to include it into our dependencies. Okay, so now you see that also a no modules folder got created. And these are the different projects that the Forge APIs module needs and depends on it. So now we have Forge APIs included. And at the same time, also a package lock.json got created when we did this with npm. So don't worry about that file too much. So then we're gonna do npm install express -- save. Now we're going to be installing Express in order to handle our server. npm install Molter. Let me see if I'm typing that correct. Molter, yes. Sorry, sometimes I have this kind of typos. Even when I tweet, I always realize after. Install session, I believe it is. Save. Cookie session, yep. All right, so now we have a package JSON that looks like this, where all the dependencies have been added, and we have also the entry point as start.js, okay? But at the moment, we don't have anything yet in this side. So this is what we need to start moving along and creating this part. So now we are with something similar to this, and now we're gonna start going with our folder and file structure. So now to create a new folder file, we were gonna right click on the Explorer area on the left and then select a new folder or a new file. So we will need to create a routes folder in order to handle all our server-side files, and also a public folder in order to handle all our client-side files. So at this point, my project should look like this. Public routes, the two package JSONs, and this picture is missing the node module, so we need to add that later. But publics and routes is what we need to create right now. So one simple way, I'm not a big fan of the right click in the Mac, so I'm just gonna select empty, add a new folder. We're gonna call it public. Same thing again, empty, new folder, routes. And now we have public routes, the two package JSON in the node modules. And now, since we're using Visual Studio Code, this has a cool functionality to do debugging. So we will add a configuration, and then we will select also the environment being Node.js. And this will create a new folder in our project that is going to be called .vscode with a launch.json file. And then we're going to replace the content of that JSON file with this code, which will allows us to use the environmental variables for the Forge client ID, Forge client secret, and callback URL. So as you remember when I told you, make sure when you create your Forge application, we have this set up, okay? So we're gonna copy to clipboard, get back here, select here. Then we're gonna do run, add configuration. We're gonna select Node.js. Now you see that this folder got added and also launch JSON got added. And my computer froze, there we go. Select all of it, kill it, add this new one. So now at this point, we will need to add our client ID and client secret into here, okay? So let me quickly head over to My apps. Sorry, the camera and Zoom keeps getting in my way. So my apps, and I created this application yesterday, so I'm gonna reuse this one. So AAC Hackathon, and now I have client ID. Okay, so we're gonna replace this value here, leaving the quotes in. We can do client secret. One simple click copies it. And don't worry if you see my client secret, I will regenerate for a second time after we're done with this. Now we save this, and now we have our environment in Visual Studio Code in order to use these variables that we'll be using through our project in order to authenticate correctly to the server, and also have the callback URL for our three-legged authentication. Okay. So let's head back. Let me close a couple of things. All right, so let's head back here. And now we're gonna start building our start.js file. So in the root folder, we're gonna create the start.js file. We will have this code in there, which basically will create our Express server in order to interact with the different kind of routes that we will be later on creating, like the authentication, the data management, and the user profile access. So we can copy the clipboard, get back here, selecting the empty side of it, and then do start.js. Paste this code here and save it. And now we have everything looks correct. So yeah, path, express, cookie session. If no client ID and secret gets passed on the environmental variables, we'll get an error. And these are being read from a configuration file that we still don't have, but we're about to create. And then initializing the app with the express module. And yeah, I think we have almost everything. Okay, cool. So now we're gonna move along. And like I said before, yes, now we're gonna do the configuration JS file. So this will set up the environmental variables instead of actually hard coding it in here to values for credentials.client client secret, callback URL. And also we will set up scopes. And scopes, when it comes to our authentication, are the permissions that we are assigning to the token. We use some for internal use on the server. So whenever we want to do some data read, data create, bucket create, bucket read. In this tutorial, we're not using buckets since we're accessing the storage from BIM360 docs. And the one that we did yesterday, we did use buckets because we are handling our own containers with our application API keys. And then for public viewing, we will use only the viewables read. So in case, let's say, this token gets exposed for any reason on the client side, the permission itself is only to visualize files, but not your files, since you will not have, you will need a combination of the token and also the scopes with your account in order to be able to visualize it. So now let's copy the clipboard, get back here, select empty, and do config.js. So now we paste this, and then everything looks good. Model exports, credentials, scopes, public internal, ID, secret URL. Good. Save this. Let's move along. So now what we did right now, it's defining our environmental variables, right? So now when the Express server starts running, it will get those values from the launch JSON configuration that we did previously. So this is one of the cool things about Visual Studio Code. Let's say now you publish this later into hosting service, let's say AWS, Heroku, or something like that. Your API keys will need to be set up in some sort of environmental variables with this kind of same values of forge client ID, forge client secret, and adding the value to it in order for the project, when it gets run, to identify the values for it and be able to run successfully. Okay. So now at this point, our project should look something like this. We have VS Code, launch JSON, public and routes folder, config, package, log package JSON start.js. Again, we're missing the null modules one from here. But again, VS Code, null modules, public routes, config, package JSON, package log, start.js. Cool. Let's move along to authorization. And now we're going to use a three-legged authentication. And pretty quickly, when something that probably is not too clear about what's the three-legged, what's the two-legged. So three-legged, the simplest way that I always tend to explain this is think about it as a triangle, right? The developer is one of those corners. Out of the server, it's another corner, and the user that wants to share, I guess, the data with the application in order to access, it's one of the other corners. So the developer requests out of the server the permission to access user A's data. Now user A data gets a notification saying, do you allow this application to access your data? Because it can be the same user actually trying to access his own data, but needs to go through this kind of triangle. And then user A says, yes, I do allow this application to access my data. Tells out of the server, yeah, we're good. Out of the server tells the developer, yeah, you're good to actually access. So with that, we move along and we have the three-legged authentication. And it gets based on Auth 2.0. So you're probably familiar with, let's say, Facebook authentication or Google and so on, that they always kind of like end up requesting your application wants to access this, this Facebook data, do you allow it? And then you end up saying yes. So now we're gonna choose again Node.js. And before I continue with authentication, let me just quickly check how are we doing with questions and stuff like that. All right, very good. In the end, could send the presentation. Yes, Chamba, we will send the presentation. Okay, cool. All right, so hiding floating meeting controls again. All right, so now we will start building our basic auth implementation. And for this, we will need two files. Inside of our routes folder, we will create an auth.js file. This file will take care of creating the express router for the auth related endpoints. So basically, it will look something like this when we have a router to the auth URL, a router to the sign out, a router to the auth token, and an exporter of that router. So what we're gonna do is copy this to the clipboard and then create this file now. So we're gonna go now, routes, and in routes, we're gonna add a new file. We're gonna call this auth.js. And then auth.js will get this code. Again, token, sign out, URL, callback auth, express config, auth from common out. So now we see that we have a reference to a require file that it's inside of a folder called common and a file called auth. So this is the one that we're going to be creating now. So we move along, and this basically it's our next step. So now it says, create a common subfolder in the routes folder and prepare a routes common auth.js file that will actually request the access token from Forge. So this will be used in other parts of this tutorial. So again, we will be using from the Forge APIs the auth client three-legged. And in here, the class auth will get functions like the get client, check if it's authorized, asynchronous functions for the get public token and internal, and also some setting of the code that you get back when you do the callback for authentication, some expire end function, some is expire, and then also functionality for refreshing the token. So, I think I froze there for a second. All right, so now, let's see. We're gonna copy the clipboard. Now we're gonna go into routes again, but now we're gonna create a folder. This folder is gonna call common. Now inside of common, we're we're going to create a new file with the same name, auth.js. Add this code in here, save it, and now we have the two files that we need for our authentication. So we're going to move along with this. So this code will store both the access token on the session, that's reason in a cookie-based way, and also have access to the refresh token and an expiration time. So when it expires, it will use the refresh token to request two new access tokens, the internal and the public. So now we move along to do the list hubs and projects. So using data management, we have a way to access the project service, which is the hub, the project, and from there, either we go into the item, the version, and the storage service, or we can go from the project to a folder, the item and version, and to the object storage of that location. So hubs are basically the BIM360 Team Hub, the Fusion Team Hub, or the BIM360 Docs account. Then projects, same thing for BIM360 Docs projects, folders, items, versions, and these ones are the ones that we used yesterday. Okay, so again, we're gonna be selecting Node.js, and we're gonna be creating now a new file that's gonna be called data management.js. So inside of the routes folder, we will create data management.js file containing the following content. This will give you the routers for the data management endpoint, where you will get an access token from our two previous files that we just created. And it will start getting the hubs, and based on if it's the first time getting hubs, when we expand on it, it start getting hubs, projects, folders, items, and so on, okay? So now we will copy this to clipboard, get back to here. Now let's make sure that we create this file in the routes folder. We're gonna call it data management.js. Save this here, see if everything is fine. Hubs, projects, folders, items, get hubs using the Forge API, hubs, projects, folders, items API, auth from common auth, router for the express router, endpoint for data management, require express. Yeah, everything looks okay. Now let me just quickly check data management. Okay, good. That typo could actually mess me up, so that might be. So now, the above receives the request from the UI3. So this ID parameter indicates the node that it's being expanded. So the hashtag means that the root node, so it will list all the hubs. And after it contains the href of the resource, when expanding the hub, the endpoint should return the project of the hub and start getting all the different calls. So depending of what kind of hub you're using, you will also, you will get back information about each specific hub, okay? So now it says, to complete it, also copy the following content to the file, all right? So we're gonna copy to clipboard, and let me see this, if I'm not mistaken, are all the functions that we need. All right, cool. So in here, again, inside of data management, we have this router, okay? So we're gonna close that, and come in here and add the different functions that we need. Expand the router again, just to make sure that we did not mess up anything. Because if we see this, it's actually calling what we just added, which is this, right? So now we have all the different functions for get hubs, get projects, get folders, get folder content, get versions, and also create a tree node with all the information that we will need. And then we export that to the router. So now we're gonna save this, get back to here to say, the last get function returns the version of each item where the relationship derivatives data ID contains the URN. So the viewer needs this URN in order to identify what's the path location of that file in BIM360 docs in order to load it in the viewer. So this is kind of like the key part of it. Like I show here, when I select the item version, this item version contains a URN that would allow you to load it into the viewer. So let's get back to here. And now we will need some user information. Okay, so now when using a three-legged access token, we can also get the profile information of an authorizing end user. And this will include the name and picture, which is basically interesting to give it a better customization. This is what we're talking about. So this picture, if you see it really small, has a little afro, that's me. So you can actually get the user profile from there. So we will do this by going again to Node.js. And now inside of the routes folder, we will create a new user.js file containing the following content. So we copy this, get back to here. In the routes folder, we will add a new file. It's gonna call user.js, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Okay, so now we post this. We check Express, user profile API from Forge APIs, auth for the authentication coming in from common auth, let router for the Express router, and then the endpoint for the user profile. Internal token, user profile, the response JSON, it's basically the name, first name, last name, and the profile image in a size X, 40 for that picture. And then we export that, okay? So we save this. And now basically we are done with our server side. So before I move into the viewer, which now the viewer is the client-side library that basically uses HTML5 and JavaScript in order to let you visualize all your client-side content, the geometry of those models loaded, and so on. The viewer is based on WebGL and Three.js. And any kind of browser that supports those technologies will allow you to use the viewer. I think, if I'm not mistaken, almost every single browser after, I want to say 2012 or something like that, supports WebGL. And also mobile devices, for example, Apple, iOS, I think it's above iOS 5 or 6, supported also WebGL. So it might be a little bit off on those versions, but most likely in today's user browsers, it supports it. So now we're gonna move into the Node.js side. And for this, before I get started, I wanna do a quick check. I don't see anything on the chat, and the Q&A has been answered by Adam. Thank you very much, Adam. Appreciate. All right, so let me move along then. Hiding and floating meeting controls. All right, so now on the client side one, we will need to add a certain structure to our public folder. So we will organize the content like this. In the public folder, we will have an HTML file. We will have a JS folder, a CSS folder that will contain our CSS file and our JavaScript files. So the image below should give you a structure of how this thing should look, right? So if we see, we have the public folder, we have a CSS folder. At the same level, we have a JS folder. And at the same level, we have an index.html file. So be careful that if you include this index.html file inside of one of these folders, there's not gonna be a way for the project to know what files needs to load, and probably your application will not run. So one way to avoid this, for me, it's actually being able to create the index.html file first. So we're gonna go back to our project, and now we have public folder, and then add a new file, index.html. So now we have the index.html. We're gonna leave it empty for now. Select the public folder again. And now we're gonna add a new folder. And this is gonna be the CSS one. At the same time also, select public folder again, add a new folder. This is gonna be the JS folder. Now inside of CSS, we're gonna add a new file. It's gonna call main.css. And inside of JS folder, we're gonna need two files. They're gonna call forge3.js and also forgeviewer.js. Okay, so now we check forge3.js, forgeviewer.js, main.css, index.html, CSS folder, JS folder, index at the same level. I think we're good to go. So now we head over to the client side. So now we give you some pointers about what we're going to using in our index.html. So we will be using jQuery for the DOM manipulation, Bootstrap for the styling, and JS3 to list our buckets and objects in a three-way, kind of like a tree structure way. And then all those libraries are coming from the CDN. So we wanted to use this kind of libraries in order to keep it as simple as possible for you to also like build on top of it. So we're gonna copy to clipboard, get back here, select index.html, paste this. We have references for the Forge Viewer libraries, so we have the style CSS for viewer 7 point and then asterisk for grabbing the latest one on the viewer. And then 7 point asterisk as well for the JavaScript source, also grabbing the latest one for the viewer. And then we have references to the CSS main CSS file, the forge3.js, and the forgeviewer.js. We have also the part about putting up the login mechanism and also the div container for the viewer. So I think we're good in that regard on the HTML file. So now we're gonna head over here, and then we're gonna get the same code for managing our user hubs, our Forge viewer, and the different styles for our CSS. So copy to clipboard, get back to our CSS, and then just add the code here. So Forge viewer, user hubs, body fill, HTML body. Good. Save this, get back here. Forge 3. This will basically handle all the tree view for listing our hubs, projects, folder, items, versions in this Forge 3 file, which will also do the calls to the different endpoints that we previously defined, like the OAuth URL, and then also the API Forge data management in order to listing out those hubs. And then at the same time also, if that is set up correctly, we will be sending to a function that is called launch viewer. This will be built up in the forgeviewer.js file that will basically launch the viewer with the identifier that you're gonna be giving it. So, and also the show user functionality for the user profile part. So now let's go and copy to clipboard. Forge 3, show user, launch viewers, API Forge data management, auth, sign on refresh. Okay, cool. Oh, token. We're good with the Forge 3. And then the last file will be the forgeviewer.js, where we have the function of the launch viewer running on the Autodesk production environment, getting a Forge token, um, addressing whenever you are on the EMEA region of BIM360, so that way you also can get access to those to that storage location. Initializing the viewer, passing in the value of the URN as a document ID. If the load is successful, we will start loading all the viewables that are available per that file. So when I talk about viewables, I mean the 3D views that are available with that project, the 2D views that are associated with that project. And then from there also a get forge token callback using that endpoint that we previously created. So we're gonna copy the clipboard, get back here, go into Forge Viewer, add this. So now bird viewer, launch viewer, initializer, document load success, load failure, Forge token. Cool. All right. So to summarize, we did up the index HTML, the main CSS, the Forge3.js, and the Forge Viewer.js. So now it's time to run the app. So now we will be using, I guess, this sample to be run, and then we will get access to our storage locations and so on. So now we choose the language, and this is one of the reasons that I said that I like Visual Studio Code, because simply hitting start debugging will let us start debugging in our localhost 3000. But there is one thing that we are missing, and that is our application is still not registered in our BIM360 docs account. Okay, so we need to copy that client ID. We're gonna go to BIM360, the account administration, we're gonna add an integration. Do the account administration and document management, hit next. I'm a developer, next, and include that Forge client ID. I do have this, call it AC Hackathon Workshop. AC Hack Workshop. And save this. So now that integration has now been saved. So now we're able to actually run this, right? So now if we did everything correctly, the demo gods are on my side today, we should be able to run this. So now if we open debug console and then start debugging, we should be listening now on port 3000. I want to show you the full thing. So I'm going to open an incognito wall, incognito tab, sorry, not wall, and then do localhost 3000. So now we have the view house models Autodesk Forge application running. Now we do sign in, and this is not going to read my current one. 1 second. Yeah, if I do allow it, it's going to be reading my old one. That's not what I want. It should let me do my other one. Ugh. Let me try that again. Oh, we have some problem here. Oh no, those are the warnings because we don't have anything running yet. Okay, so let me try that again. Okay. Localhost 3000. There we go. So now we do Hope I remember my password. This is kind of like my testing account. So, all right, cool. So now this is gonna send me 174. Yes. Fine. So now workshop allow. And something else still not working for me. Let me see. Be because, oh, I think I know why. So Autodesk, this guy needs to try like that. Projects. Oh, that's the reason why. We don't have a project assigned for this guy, so we need to add a project. So let's do that. So we're gonna add Hymedox test. We're gonna add select. That's project admin 2. Let's call it the manager, why not? Add to project. Okay. So see now. This is actually good testing for whenever you guys wanna give it a shot. Now we're in business. So now we can see that hub account. We get here the project that I just got added to it, project files, and we come going to the subfolder of Jaime folder and my Bourbon house, and select that item version, and voila. So now we have our project connecting to that Autodesk Hub Jaime Docs Test project, all the different root folders, subfolders, items, and versions. And this is basically our little baby BIM360 integration that allows us to read data coming in from BIM360 docs. So I notice I don't have a user profile. That's probably because I haven't finished that profile. Like I said, it's my testing profile, so I don't interact too much with it. I just use it for this kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's one way to get started. And let me pretty quickly open up for Q&A. And then professional background for the AAC hackathon. So Francis, I think you probably missed when I answer about this, but let me say it again. So the AAC hackathon itself allows and welcomes all kind of different professional backgrounds in the AAC industry. That being said, if you have software skills, it's a good skill to have whenever developing solutions like this. If you don't, that's okay, because the software people will still need some sort of direction and experience within the industry. So let's say you're an architect or you're a civil engineer or a building operations manager, and you deal with like a day-to-day problem that you want to solve. So you can give those software developers a good path into what to follow along in order to solve that problem that you guys are identifying in the industry today. So a lot of really good collaborations have actually come across something like this. Even I've seen, like, let's say, small team gatherings that turn into startups, and now they are like fully running businesses thanks to an event like the AAC Hackathon. So definitely it's something for you guys to consider. I want to open up the floor for questions. I know that going through this tutorial, it kind of goes a little bit fast. but like I said, I have like an hour and a half to give you the full presentation, and that's I rather for you to watch instead of kind of like following along, because I will be sharing this webinar. So yeah, Rafael, to answer your question, yes, I will be sharing this webinar. There is another question from Mark. It says, what would be the benefit of using .NET Framework instead of Node.js? So in regards to benefit, I'm gonna put it in a simple way. Whatever you feel comfortable with, that's for me kind of like the benefit. But like the Forge platform itself, every single service, aside from the viewer, it's REST API based. What that means is that you can use any kind of server-side language in order to build up the endpoints to get the data, for example, the data management, to get the data and folder structure from BIM360, for doing the authentication, for creating the user profile, and so on. So this same tutorial, we have it in .NET Framework and also .NET Core. But let's say you have experience with Python or PHP or Golang or some other language that you prefer to use. The REST API from Forge, it's kind of adaptable to any kind of language that you prefer. So when it comes to the answer of what's the benefit, it's whatever actually works for you. I did .NET Framework for a long time of my career. I used to be part of the BIM360 Glue team when we got acquired by Autodesk, and that was using .NET Framework. And now on, I have moved towards the Node.js environment a little bit more. To me, it's just kind of like simpler to keep everything with one same kind of like syntaxes for the client and the backend as well. All right, so I hope that answers your question, Mark. And then let me see. Yeah. What is my professional background? So I am an architectural university lecturer interested in how we prepare the next generation of graduates. Should we include coding and programming? Yeah, so professional background for me, I'm a software engineer. I went to school for software engineer. Actually, I grew up around computers. My dad was one of the first software engineers in Guatemala. So for me, it was always a cool environment. And including coding and programming and architectural, I do see a benefit, to be honest with you. The fact that you want to automate certain tasks nowadays, if you have this coding and programming background, or just at least the logic of it, could definitely benefit you quite a lot. If you don't have skills for programming, can I do this as well? Can you do what exactly, Chamba? Maybe, actually, let me open up the chat. And the participants. So if you guys want to ask me a question directly, you can raise a hand and I can unmute you. And that way others can listen to it. So don't be shy, just raise a hand. You will come to the top of my list of attendees and I will enable your mic. All right, cool, let's see. Francis, you can talk now.
Yeah, I think perhaps people that might want to take part in this might want to just learn what's happening, and be more of an observer. But obviously, to take part, the whole point of the hackathon is it's a collaborative task, isn't it, that everybody's doing. So I'm just wondering if there's any facility for attending the hackathon and observing what people are doing, so you get an insight into the possibilities.
Yeah, I think I guess being part of the registration also gives you access to the different kind of talks that will happen through the span of the 2 weeks. Being able to access, I guess, the Slack channel where the communications will happen. Yeah, no, I see it as something beneficial, to be honest. So it will be cool to just consider if you have the time and interested in joining, I will encourage you to do it. In the events that we have done it in the past, that I've been part of it. Like I'm not one of the organizers, but I've been kind of like an alumni for them, helping them with like different trainings and so on. It's always good to see people that just come in as listeners. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances, we cannot get all together in a room, which will be ideal. But this kind of virtual events itself can help you out identify that part. And yeah, so you can start seeing, for example, be part of the lighting rounds and then just listen to what others are proposing about something that they want to work during the week, because that might even give you an idea of something that you have thought in the past and say, oh, actually, this is a problem that I at the same time I used to have, and I solved it in this way. And maybe I can give them a pointer of how I have managed to solve, and then someone can even include like some other experience to automate this kind of task and build an application out of it. You know what I mean? So that's one of the good and cool things about this kind of events, the camaraderie and the sharing of knowledge that happens from different points of view. It's what I see the most beneficial for.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Okay, let me see. And then will you share with us how to gain access to BIM360 docs as a developer? We have created a Ford application, but only have, yes, I will send these links in a while when my recording becomes available. So look it up later on today, somewhere around the afternoon, because I need to still upload this video to YouTube, and that way you guys have a quick access to it. And because right now we're up to close to an hour and a half, it takes a little bit to upload and then being processed by YouTube in general. But yeah, I will be sharing all those steps as well. Okay, any other questions? You can raise the hand or just ask in the Q&A. All right, if no questions, so let me wrap it up and finish with my presentation. Oh, there is one coming in. Oh, you're welcome, Samir. I'm glad you guys are finding this useful. So let me finish up with, I still have like 2 more slides, so bear with me. Okay, so we are done with this. So what is next? Like I said, on July 10th, AEC Hackathon kicks off. I will invite you to sign up today. You can head over to aechack.com in order to get that sign up. Let me see if I got that link right, actually. I always confuse them. AEC, no, it's actually Hack AEC. hackac.com. So yeah, so head over to hackac.com, register, and that way you guys get access to the different kind of presentations that we will be having during the week. There's some other workshops later on today, I believe, creating your first multi-user VR experience, and some other ones that, yeah, definitely I will encourage you to look into. Oh, this Matterport one, I know the guys. They have done amazing BIM360 integrations as well. And like I said, there's many different other challenges, not only the ones that I announced today, which are the best BIM360 project and the best design automation project, but there are other ones in there. And then presentations, we have a good lineup. This is a big lineup of different presentations where a lot of topics are going to be discussed during there. I know some of these guys and girls. My colleague, actually, Kiam Wansley, he's going to be talking about Project Dasher, and one of the research project between Autodesk in regards to digital twins and AEC. Then we have Micon, which they have a really cool digital twin application for manufacturing workflows using Forge as well. We have Stuart Max, who has a tiny little robot. To me, it looks like Wally, but it's actually a pretty cool company called Scale Robotics. They do they use Forge as well, so definitely give them a look. So there is, like I said, a lot of benefit of registering for something like this. There is different resources about GitHub projects in the past, projects that are hosted on the AAC Hackathon website, and many other ones. So a lot of different mentors, like Angel Say, he's the CEO of Insight VR. They do VR collaboration meetings for BIM360. So yeah, definitely take a look at it. It's gonna be a cool event. So from the safe spot of your house, you can get access to a lot of knowledge in that regard. So now let me move along to then how to get support when it comes to BIM360 integrations and Forge. We use Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow itself has a different tag for Autodesk-Forge and Autodesk-Viewer. So if you want to ask any questions, you can tag your question with those words, and then it will get included into our system in order to be able to help you out with any question like that. And with that, let me take a look at the chat for one last time. Let me also give you the link to, actually, I will send you the link in the bulk email that I will send to all of you that register for the webinar. So with that, thank you very much again for joining me today. Adam, thank you very much, the man behind the speaker, I guess, helping out with all the questions. Thanks, Adam, for your help. And one last Q&A. Yeah, you're welcome, Mark. I hope you guys found this useful. It was a good 2 days of webinars and workshops. I encourage you to take a look at what we have. We have really, really good material for you to get started with the platform. So yeah, any other comments or anything like that? You know my Twitter, so AfroJME. You can tweet me there, and then we can chat about anything. So yeah, thank you guys, and I will catch you up hopefully during the AAC Hackathon. Take care.